Welcome to Resolve IBS and IBD Naturally. I'm Courtney Cowie, a nutrition therapy and functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. If you are struggling with the symptoms of IBS or IBD and want to get to the root cause of your symptoms so you can take back your health through a whole person approach, this podcast is for you. Just a disclaimer that the information I'm presenting in this podcast is for educational purposes only and should not be taken as medical advice. You should always consult a qualified practitioner before making any changes to your health or medical regimen. That being said, let's get on with the show. I'm very fascinated with German New Medicine, and I've really gotten to a place both with my own personal health journey and with some of the more complex people I've been attracting. Because as you know, everyone's a mirror. You attract yourself at whatever place you're at in time. And then sometimes you're attracting people who are like past
Bingo.
versions of you, right? And so
Totally.
I'm just more and more of the belief, although I love supporting physical health from a functional testing, nutritional lifestyle, behavioral change, kind of like you did as well.
Yeah,
I'm really starting to see that the nervous system and what's stored in the body emotionally and unresolved trauma wise is really like the core of it. And I love the
totally.
framework of German New Medicine. And I also am a huge fan of hypnotherapy, although I've never really done much of it, but I see a huge potential. So, yes. So, anyhow, with that
Yes.
intro.
So I combine them together. I know we're gonna have a great conversation today.
Oh,
So
for sure.
if
For
you're
sure.
if you are open to seeing wherever the hell this goes, it's the most fun part about this. That's how my podcast works.
Yeah.
Um, and we're just gonna go, I think, into different places that you may have never gone with other people, which will be fun.
All right, Matt. Well, I'm gonna let you roll with it because I know you got a lot to say, and obviously we're gonna center on hypnotherapy and German New Medicine because those are things that have not been on the podcast, and I know people are
Perfect.
really gonna love and that have a lot of value. I think for the IBS and IBD camp of folks, which is the people I'm really speaking to here, right?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Perfect. Excellent. I think the place to start is how did I even find this? Like how did this even happen? Because uh it's interesting. A lot of people don't know where I started. Like I graduated my undergrad with physical education and health. Like I was a kindergarten through third grade phys ed teacher for 18 years. And I love movement and I love play and I love just the physical nature of um, how people fall in love and stick with physical fitness and nutrition for life. And I loved being the first experience for kids and how they got to experience how it all how it all pieces together and just really genuinely caring about human beings. And I started it wasn't about money at all. It was like I want to just work with kids and help kids. And then I decided, you know basically my high school football coach was like, hey, come coach with me. So I started coaching high school football, and then I got into the I just was watching these kids just run down the field and like blow an ACL or like, throw out an ankle or something like that. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? And so that led me to go and watch them in the weight room and see how they were, how horrible that looked. And I was like, man, this is not great either. And so it led me to the first conference I went to was called Perform Better, and Perform Better it's run in multiple places, all three places in the United States. So I live outside of Boston, and so I drove down to Providence, Rhode Island, and then that was like what opened up like Pandora's box for me, where I was like, oh my God, there's so much that I don't know. And it was like really the beginning. This is circa like 2007, 2008. And so I was like, man, like there's a whole nother world I don't know anything about. And so I just started digging deeper, and it led me to the International Youth Conditioning Association. And I just started falling in love with strength and conditioning and doing that type of certification while getting my master's in health and physical education and like just falling in love and being just genuinely curious about all of this. And so I decided in 2009, 2010, I was dating my current wife, and I
Mhm.
was this was August, probably 2010. I decided to buy a fitness franchise and a wedding ring on the same day, clean out my bank
Oh,
account, and here we go. Opened the fitness facility, and that's when it started to unlock all these other things that led me to German new medicine and hypnotherapy. I didn't know it yet, though. I was still in the infancy of this. So it was kind of like I was launching this thing, and it was probably half kids, half athletes and half adults at the time. And it was something where two things happened that led me to this other path that we're going to go into deeper today. But I think it's important to know how you end up finding this.
yeah.
So the first thing was, a year into running my fitness facility, I was like, man, it's so wild how there's some people, which is like a very small percentage of the population, like 3 to 5%, can get results and keep them no problem. It's just, they just go on and they're good,
Yeah.
but it's very, very minuscule. So how come this was the first question that led me on like a decade and a half journey to that led me to hypnotherapy and German new medicine. So the question was, how come some people get results but can't keep them? Like, what's that about? Why is that?
Mhm.
And then how come some people will do everything you ask? Diet, nutrition, sleep, exercise, and they don't get results. What's
Yeah.
that about? And so it
Yeah.
just kind of led me on this adventure. And also at the same time, here I am teaching from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. and then going and running a fitness facility from 3:30 to 8 p.m. Just had our first child, and that's when I just started getting sinus infections.
Yeah.
And this is gonna probably ring. This is gonna make sense to your to your clients because I just started getting sinus infections, and I didn't understand where they were coming from. And when you have that type of stuff happen and you don't know what you don't know, you go to the doctor. One hammer, one nail,
Exactly.
antibiotics, right?
Yeah.
And so I took my first bout. This was, I'm gonna say, 2012. At the same time, I was living in an apartment that I just had discovered in the walls. There was mold in the walls.
Yeah.
There was like stuff like that. So it was just like a perfect storm situation. Me and my wife, we just got married. Um, so I took antibiotics, nothing worked. Then I went on my honeymoon. This was like 2012, and I got into um, a beautiful honeymoon excursion. And while I was on the excursion, we went on this tour on the island, and I ended up we stopped at this place, and this woman in her kitchen served us food, and she gave us water. Not
Mhm.
thinking anything about it, I
Yeah.
drank the water. Not great. Okay. It caused a further issues because I mean, the last night there, I remember this because it was my 30th birthday. I just vomiting and just like horribleness. And then when we got home, it was like the next 7 days I had just like every type of gastrointestinal
Symptom.
experience that
Yeah.
anybody who has um, your clientele will totally know what I'm talking about. I don't even need
Oh,
to say it.
yeah.
It's just horrible, right? And that was the next antibiotics. Okay. And then I just started getting sugar cravings, not understanding that either. And here I am running my fitness facility, telling clients don't eat refined sugar, and I'm closet eating it. Like hardcore, and not under, and feeling a lot of shame and like frustration around it. Like I'm like uncontrollable. It's kind of like the munchies. Like I just can't stop.
Yeah.
But had no clue gut bacteria, didn't understand any of that at this point. And you know, of course, that led to more sinus infections, more stress because I was literally running a business, teaching full time. And I mean, the business was starting to thrive. I mean, we had like 150 member, 200 members, and I had a staff, and it was the whole thing, and just trying to do it all. And after like the fourth or fifth sinus infection, antibiotics. So this was, I want to say 2014, January 2014. I took my last bout of antibiotics. I'm a big guy, so if you met me in person, I'm about 6'3", 6'4". At that point I was about 205 pounds, and I dropped down to 163 in 3 months.
Ooh, gee.
Completely destroyed my gut flora. Just my whole gastrointestinal system I wasn't digesting, I wasn't absorbing, I wasn't assimilating food at that point. Didn't
Yeah.
know what I was doing, scared to death. Um, because when you're in that space, it's probably how a lot of your clients feel when they come to see you. Like, you don't know who to trust, who to go through, you just don't know. And it was a scary time. And when you're in pain, you'll take anything, you'll do anything, you'll pay anything. And
Right.
I was buying every supplement. I stopped drinking. I stopped in taking the first two things to go was caffeine and gluten. Just were
Hmm.
like, yep. I mean, pretty familiar in the literature, like don't gluten, goodbye, like that type of thing. And so I also was just like taking as many supplements as I humanly possibly, like everything you can think of. And this was the wake up call to me was I went and saw an applied kinesiologist. And for those of you that don't know what that is, it's basically, it was a chiropractor who did muscle testing just to understand it deeper. And so he was like, bring all your supplements. So I fill up a giant basket, like literally think of a basket that, just think of a giant basket. Okay, I put all my supplements in it, and uh, not it was big enough that I couldn't put it on the chair next to me. So I go to his office. I sit in the area there, and I put it in front of me. And this is the first time going there, and he comes out of the office, and he takes one look at me, and he takes one look at the basket, and he just starts laughing. And then he runs back into his office and then comes out with his phone, and he takes a picture of me with the basket. And I'm smiling and laughing at the same time. Because in my mind, I'm like, oh, it clicked for me. I'm like, I'm doing this wrong, right? Like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I'm throwing spaghetti at the wall, hoping it's going to stick.
Totally.
He was super helpful, and really, between him and then the acupuncturist, I eventually got into acupuncture as well because of we were having trouble getting pregnant. We had two miscarriages, and my wife saw an acupuncturist, and it gave me my wife back, and we ended up having a child naturally after that.
Yeah.
Uh, and that was transformative, and it led me to acupuncture. So between the chiropractic, applied kinesiology, and acupuncture, those were my first steps, as well as very deep nutritional transformation and stress reduction transformation, and all of that led me to repair and heal my gut. Okay,
Yeah.
so that was phase one of all of this. And heading into 2016 was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm going to kill myself trying to run this fitness facility and teach full time and all that stuff. So I decided to not renew my lease, and uh, December 2016 just said goodbye to that. I closed the doors and headed into 2017. Sad, feeling that was probably my first, and we'll get into this as we go into German new medicine, but that was probably my first trauma conflict. Okay, so
Gotcha.
when we get into this, we have to understand it's acute. It's very like, oh, like you didn't see it coming. It was like I thought I was gonna have multiple gyms. I thought that was gonna be me forever. Thank God it wasn't, because I am totally doing what I'm supposed to be doing now. But it was sad, and there was a lot of like shame around what I saw as failure in that moment in time with the fitness facility, because I was, it was really successful, but I couldn't keep it going. So I could get the plate to spin, but I couldn't keep it spinning on my finger, right? Couldn't keep
Yeah.
all the plates spinning. So, and that, of course, fed some of the deeper enoughness issues that I dealt with, which we'll talk about when we get deeper into hypnotherapy and German new medicine. But in German New Medicine, they call that self-devaluation conflict. Okay. So, uh, I call it enoughness issues. So all of us deal with enoughness issues in some way, shape, or form. Uh, but I didn't know any of this at this time. Didn't understand. I had done all of Tony Robbins' programs, all of Les Brown and Jim Rohn's mind programs. I took them all, and that was my understanding of mindset. So I was very good at mindset and nutrition and fitness at this time, heading into the online space, 2017. And I was
Yeah.
like, I could build something out of this. And that was when I got introduced to the like high ticket coaching. I didn't know what that was. I didn't know any of that stuff. I didn't know what that meant. But I realized very quickly that I actually could work with less people, get them 10x results, and
Mhm.
really support them in a much deeper capacity, which is what they really needed in the first place.
Mhm.
And I just felt so blessed and grateful that I was kind of like, I would say God pushed me this direction with the gut stuff. And also, I felt this might not ring true for many of you listening, but I felt like I was given gut health issues so that I could spend 10,000 hours studying the gut and really understanding it at such a deep level, because like guy was like, oh, he can handle it. Like
Yeah.
let's let him, because he's gonna learn. We know him. He's gonna just go down this rabbit hole and never give up. And it was like I was when I did my upper endoscopy to fully like address all the gut health stuff, it was candida and H. pylori overgrowth and all that
Mhm.
stuff. And they were like, "Oh, you need a triple bout of antibiotics to resolve this." And I was like, "Isn't that how I got into this situation? Like that doesn't make any sense." Like, and so I'm sitting in the waiting room of the upper endoscopy place, and like I have my script for my triple bout of antibiotics. And I remember I walked out of the office, I ripped up the script, and I drew a line in the sand that day, being like, I'm going to do everything in my power to learn everything I can learn about gut health and everything else. And that's what led me down further down this rabbit hole. So as you could see, it started fitness first 5 years. Then it was like nutrition and fitness the next 5 years. And then it was gut health
Yeah.
and the mind the next 5 years. And it was just like, it just kept going and going and going and unraveling this wild whirlwind that, I was bringing in these people in 2017, 2018, and 2019 and getting really good results with them. And that's when I launched my first program. I called it the Oxygen Mask Accelerator. And it was
Mhm.
geared towards moms who were having difficulties losing weight, difficulty with hormone balancing and gut health. That
Mhm.
was and mindset stuff. So that was my main clientele, these working moms that just there was a lot of enoughness issues and just a lot of things coming together. And it just I got to spend, you know, 4 years in the trenches with these amazing women. And a lot of people ask me the question at this point, well, Matt, why just women? I had is the it's just who came to work with me. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the best way I could describe it. Like it was so fascinating. Like when I opened my fitness facility, it started off with high school male football players and male basketball players. Within 3 years, I look on the floor, it's like high school female athletes, high school athletes and moms. And it was just like, this is who you're supposed to be serving. This is who you're supposed to be helping. So I just went with it. Of course, imposter syndrome creeps in for all of us, like, but I'm a guy. And yet I knew that I had talked to literally at this point thousands of moms and listened to their stories and what they think about before they fall asleep at night and their fears and all these things. And so I really understood them at a very deep level. And I will say this, and I'll say this for all of you listening, I will never, ever, 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 ever know what it's like to be a woman and what it's like to be a mom and what it's like to be in your shoes. I just empathize because you are the linchpin that holds all of this together. And when mom is unhealthy and unhappy and dealing with gut health issues, it affects everybody and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so I just said, I'm going to do everything in my power to support these amazing women and support them in their gut health and their mind and their all of the things. Okay. But the, there's a limit to that, is what I realized. Like I just was like, what if I could just read their mind? There's something that I can't see right now. And I know you feel like this. You know, you're like, I just want to help these people, but I can't see there's something there and I couldn't put my thumb on it, I couldn't figure it out. I was like, you know, as much as I do with these folks, with the gut health stuff and all those things, like as much as I do, there's there's just pieces that were missing that I just couldn't understand. That's
Mm-hmm.
what led me to a couple things. Okay. So it led me first to, um, you know, amazing people like Bruce Lipton and Dr. Joe Dispenza and Marissa Peer and all of these folks that were doing just very different things
Yeah.
and had a very different shift and take, as well as it like really like helped me because I had such like a science brain. Like I have my master's in science and like so I needed some of that before I kind of went down this totally different path that I had no clue was going to unfold into what we're going to go deeper today. But it's like these folks and reading. So a couple books that I read that changed my life. And so the first one was Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton. Body Keeps the Score.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember the author, but
I think it's
it's a long read. It's a big
yeah.
book, and
I think it's
it's
Bessel van der Kolk, isn't it?
there you go. Okay,
Yeah.
so that one changed it for me, and then also Trauma by Paul Conti. All of these books are books that just really helped me start to understand there's something deeper, and I can't see it, and I can't get close enough to it to actually help these people. And they're actually wearing, in my opinion, or from what I'm learning here, not even my opinion, from what I'm learning here, this weight that they're wearing, it's just a fat suit protecting them
Mm-hmm.
subconsciously. And so no matter what we do to help them with their, you know, externally with their health stuff, if I don't address the inner stuff, and we don't get a handle on that, I'm actually doing, I don't want to say I'm doing a disservice. I'm just not doing everything in my absolute power to support these people. That's what it was, right? Because there's
Mm-hmm.
like a lot of the folks when they come and work with you, because you're amazing at this stuff. Like when they come to work with you, you're probably able to get at least 75% of them all the way through,
Mm-hmm.
and get a lot of the symptoms reduced and all those stuff. Like and I'll say this before I fully go into the hypnotherapy and German new medicine. I know I took a long route, and I hope everybody followed me on my ADHD fueled story here, folks. And I hope you enjoyed. So I'll say this before I go into this is you absolutely have to address nutrition or sorry, sleep, nutrition, and movement before we uncover any of the other boxes, y'all. Like I tried to get, I sat in the waiting room with all the supplements. Stop trying to throw supplements at stuff that isn't resolved on the other end of things first, right? Do I
Yeah.
love like, you know, standard process and stuff like that? I do. And I really think they have great products um, and at the same sense, they supplement, you know, food and
Right.
sleep and
Right.
movement. Like these are the
Right.
keys to the cornerstone to everything else. And I don't think we have enough time to go as deep down this rabbit hole, and maybe we'll do another round. But today is about German medicine and rapid transformation hypnotherapy. So here we are at this pinnacle where I'm like, I need to know. So it was 2019, and I had been following Marissa Peer for a long time at this point, and she had just within the past year or so like launched her certification to help people get certified in hypnosis, and I liked her certification because it had a bunch. And boy, did I love my certs at that point still. So basically, it was a mixture of neuro-linguistic programming, cognitive behavioral therapy, psychotherapy, and it was basically like delivered on a platter of like hypnotherapy, hypnosis. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, oh, I gotta do it. And so I jump in, this was the end of 2019, going into 2020. Um, and I finish it. I flew through it. I spent all my waking hours. Anytime I wasn't at teaching and I wasn't helping clients, I was like in this like hardcore. So I get certified March 2020. And many of you might remember, you might be like, oh, March 2020. Huh, what happened in March 2020? And for many of you, that was a very tricky time frame because that was literally the start of COVID. And it was a massive shift for a lot of people. And so here I was, brand new, fresh baby hypnotherapist guy, like being like, okay, let's just do as many of these sessions to get really good with this. So I literally within that year, I did 100 sessions because I just wanted to know. I wanted to know and I wanted to become the best. Anything I do, I just really want to become not the best for me, but the best for my clients, just to be able to serve them at the greatest, highest level. So, I did every type of session you can imagine: weight loss, smoking, drinking, confidence, money, there's so many different sessions. And I fell in love. Like, I was like, man, this is so cool. So cool. It was like everything that I had always wanted to be able to know. I was able to see the reasons why people were getting stuck. Because so for those of you that are like already freaked out by everything I'm saying on here today, if you're already freaked out, let me just like really clear the air with what hypnotherapy is and what it isn't. Okay. If you've ever seen stage hypnosis, it's not anything like that. You are in 100% control 100% of the time. If you don't want to be hypnotized, you won't be. If you, a lot of people, they'll go through it and they go, I didn't even feel like I was hypnotized. Yeah, you don't. You just feel relaxed. You feel calm. And you're much more open to sharing things that you wouldn't necessarily share or be able to even see if you weren't in a different brainwave state. That's all it is, folks. I mean, you every night, folks, before you go to sleep, you go into a different brainwave state that is the equivalent of susceptibility to new ideas and aka hypnosis. Okay, so it's something that is very we're all part of it. And I don't know if any of you have children, but if you've ever watched a child watch TV, they're like uh they just stare at the television with their mouth open. That's a perfect example of hypnosis. TV does it. It's like that's what it is. And from 0 to 7, you're in that brainwave state where you're just absorbing. You're just a little sponge, man. And you are, and this is going to sound bold, but I believe that your parents and your family have the biggest impact on you as a developing human being, probably more than God, just from the sense that they are indoctrinating you with all of their stuff. They're
Yeah.
just giving you everything. And you get to either sift through that later on in life and work through all that stuff, or you can be blind to the fact that that's just not your responsibility. And therefore, that's going to be a tough freaking road, y'all. Like it just is. Okay. So I have a belief that it is our job as adults to reframe the stuff that we couldn't really wrap our head around as children. Okay. So we didn't have the capability to even understand it
Yeah.
when we were kids. Okay. So all I do, I get to take them on a journey where I help them reframe stuff that was acutely traumatic, even if it's not the traumatic that you would think is traumatic. Because this is another thing I learned is that there's so many different kinds of trauma, and trauma doesn't care. It just, it's like a lot of people when they think trauma, they think like post-traumatic stress disorder from war or like sexual abuse or something along those lines. One that sticks out to me all the time was I did a regression and we went back. She came to me for weight loss. I did a regression. We went back and she went back to her bedroom and she was trying on a tank top and her mother said she was too fat to wear it. And from freshman year on, that solidified this fat suit that she wore for the rest of her life, pretty much. And it was a safety suit. And it was like locked in because mom said it. Mom and dad are very, very powerful figures in kids and even young adults' lives that, you know, you accept it and you just go with it. And you don't even know, you're not even really questioning it. It's just, how could they say this? And this is the other thing that I'll say about that is they don't know. They're also completely unaware of it as well. And they're dealing with generational trauma. So, I mean, it's like your great grandparents handed stuff to your grandparents that handed stuff to your parents that handed stuff to you. So, I mean, we're just experiencing this on a whole different level, y'all. Like, you know, they did this amazing study in mice where they had them smell like rose petals or something like that, and then they shocked them. And then their kids, whenever they smelled that, they had never been shocked, but they would have an adverse reaction to this thing. And then their kids would have a adverse reaction to this thing. So it's like I read all these geeky studies just to like understand not only how does this happen from like a psychological standpoint, but how does it also happen like on the you know, from a physical manifestation standpoint. I mean, you think of it like placebo or nocebo effect, right? It's the same thing where we're having this experience and it's all in our mind, you know?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
it led me to realize after doing, you know, to date, probably done about 500, more than 500 hypnotherapy sessions, but I started to really know that our mind is way more part of this gut health stuff than we could ever imagine. Okay. So, with all that being said, and before I get into any of this stuff, I really want to impart this to you. If you take nothing else away from me today and you just do this one thing, which is empathize with yourself in your situation and just stop being super shitty to yourself, like in your own head, you know, in your own mind, like stop. I know it's easier said than done, but just pay attention the way that you're talking to yourself in your head, because there's a good chance it's just all of the voices of all of the stuff that's been handed to you over decades, you know,
Mhm.
and it's not you, you know, and I'll say if it was you, then who's listening? That was a really powerful thing that I realized. Like the voice in our head isn't actually us. Like I like to think of it as three different people. There's you, the being. Then there's your ego, which is like the messenger from your subconscious to you. And it basically like will make you feel bad or manipulate you to make sure that you uh, follow what the subconscious is basically referring to, which is its only job is to keep you in the safe, familiar, predictable, and certain. That's why a
Mhm.
lot of people will completely sabotage their gut healing journey because subconscious is freaking awesome. It's there to keep you safe. That's it. Now, you might not think that it's awesome. You might be like, well, that doesn't sound awesome. It is, because we would not be here if it weren't for all of these things, on the plains of Africa, we were, we would like be like, oh, there's lions and tigers over there. Don't want to go over there. There's a tribe over there. Don't go over there. Subconscious snapshot, right? And just like, it just keeps you, it's like all there to keep you safe. So what happens is a lot of a lot of the gut stuff is when you have this like acute issue that goes on. Um, you know, Actually, this is going to be going more into German new medicine. So let me tell you what happened with German medicine. Are we good? Are we good so far? I feel like we're caught
Yeah,
up
I
with
think
this
so.
stuff.
I think so. I just want to insert one thing just real quick here, Matt, because I think everything you're
Please.
saying is so awesome. And I'm so glad you're saying all these things because I think the parental model is one that a lot of mind body practitioners don't emphasize enough. A lot of people are on that
Totally.
intergenerational trauma, and it is that, but I think that devalues our lived experience from infancy on and just how formational
Absolutely.
those years are. And I know like what you're saying right now is so spot on. I can say from my own experience being on the path of someone who's working through a lot of that garbage, as part of my health reclamation journey, I think the hardest thing about seeing your own self-talk or hearing it or being aware of it is that so much of this is subconscious. And until you start to access that information through something like hypnotherapy or
Totally.
certain other techniques, one of the things I'll just offer that's been helpful for me because I can't always see it or I'm not always aware of it is, again, this is a bit of a like learning process to get this, but if you see every engagement with other people in your life as a mirror, if you feel like people are criticizing you, if you feel like people are judging you, if you feel like people are blaming you, right? Like chances are good at a subconscious level, you're already doing that to yourself. And so that can already
Totally.
right there be a clue that something deeper is going on. And this is why people like Matt are available to help because I really
Yeah.
think this is deep, hard work for the average person to really, get to, right? Like this is not as easy as it sounds, right, Matt?
Ch- Yes and no. So I'll give some people some light. I'll make that feel less heavy because I totally agree with you. Everything you just said, I was like, yes. And what I realized is that we can have a ton of transformation in a 2 hour session. Like
Yes,
literally,
yes.
like just I mean, I have people finish with the session with me and they're like, I had no clue. Like I had no clue.
Yeah,
And just the awareness of it allows them to heal. Like it
yeah,
just allows a lot of the healing to kick in, to go in. And this is where I'll say this, and I'll explain this more when we go into deeper German new medicine stuff.
yeah,
Healing can sometimes suck worse than being in the actual
yes,
conflict. So healing phases sometimes seem like things are getting worse. So
yeah,
some of you are actually healing when it seems like things are getting worse.
yeah,
And that was a big, huge aha in
yeah,
GNM for me. Like it really put a lot of the pieces of the puzzle together.
yeah.
Um, this is so cool. And kudos to you for going down this rabbit hole and really being like open to understanding and learning this stuff. Um, because I'm sure you, similar to my story, where you'd like be helping clients and you're like, what the hell? How come, I'm showing them exactly what to do and they just are doing the opposite? Like what is going on? Like, and they have the best intentions too. They're
Right.
like they're telling me I want to heal, I want to get better, I want to blah blah blah. And uh yeah, there's so many different directions we could. This might be a two-part episode, folks.
I couldn't even go for a walk without planning my bathroom breaks. If you have IBSD or IBD and feel trapped by your gut, you're not alone. I used to plan my life around bathroom breaks until I found a 3-step solution that finally worked. To get my free guide, IBSD and IBD Relief, a 3-step solution to end bowel urgency and loose stool, click the link in the show notes below. I know we might have to do it, Matt. Well, we'll see how far we get. But yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. And I think honestly, part of your story, which resonates with me, is just the level of things going on with your gut that drove you to keep learning and learning and learning, right? Like exact same thing in my situation. And I
Yeah.
think where I've kind of arrived at this interest area, if you will, is because as much as these physical supports I still feel have to be foundational for everybody. Everybody should be eating to the best extent possible, a nutrient dense, anti-inflammatory whole foods diet, foods that work for you as an individual. Everybody should be trying to sleep well and balance their stress and work and all of the things, right? But what happens when you do all those things and you're still not well? That's the big
Bingo.
Pandora's box that you have to eventually open up. And I think this is where this entire realm has so much potential to help people, right?
Totally. And so that is where I was going pretty far, and I'm not even going to comment on how I eat and all these things today. I don't think that's going to necessarily be
Yeah.
beneficial to the conversation. I think it's going to be more the fact that so here I am, going into this was probably circa 2021,
Hmm.
2022, where I was like, all right, I had about 200 sessions under my belt and a lot of interesting things, there's a whole nother realm that went to. But I ended up connecting with my mentor, Jake, and he was a chiropractor at the time, and he um, was using German medicine to help his clients. And I remember the first time I went to the GNM website, and if any of you go there, you're gonna look at it and be like, all right, this makes no freaking sense. I remember like looking at it and being like, this is a totally different language. I don't understand this. And it was interesting because I it wasn't until I started working with Jake, and I probably spent the next year like studying with him and just like learning how this really worked. And the story that got me to dig deeper, I'll tell you right now, and this will probably all help you be like, I need to know more. Because when I heard this story, it turned on like my geeky like research brain where I'm like, I need to know more. I need to know everything about this. So this is the story. So Dr. Hammer was a well-known, very highly regarded cancer doctor in Germany at the time. This is like the 1970s. Okay, so he uh, he had a son, Dirk, and Dirk went to Italy. There was a crazy fluke thing. He got shot by an Italian prince, and it just a horrible, like random, just totally not like a chronic situation. It's a very acute trauma that just happened, right? Got shot within 2 weeks, father by his side, he passes, he dies. Okay. And here's Dr. Hammer, young guy, son just passed. Within 3 months, he's diagnosed with testicular cancer.
Hmm.
And he's like, it doesn't add up. It doesn't add up. So he postulated, there's got to be something with my son's passing and this cancer. There's just got to be something. Before I continue the rest of the story, this is for information purposes only. You decide what you want to do with this. Like, just telling you, this is like, I was like, I need to know more after everything you hear in a moment. Okay. So I'm not saying this cures cancer or anything like that. This is
Hmm.
not what we're talking about. Just stay with me for a moment. Okay. So he goes and he's like, has access to all these cancer patients. So he goes into his clinic and he interviews all of the testicular cancer patients. And he's like, hey, before you got diagnosed with testicular cancer, did you have anything that happened acute wise? Like anything, loss of any kind. Not just one, every single one of them did. Dog passing, whatever it may be, right? All of them. So he was like, huh, I'm gonna now. He decides, okay, I'm just gonna do some brain scans on all these folks, see what's going on, right? So they all had this trauma, which he calls conflict.
Hmm.
And then he goes and he does these brain scans, and every single one of them at a certain part in their brain had this ring that formed. and he calls it a Hammer focus. Okay, so that's what he calls it. But in the same part of the brain on all of these patients, the exact same spot. So he then is like, man, there's this psyche, brain, and organ connection. And
Mhm.
so he's like, wow. And so he then realized, this is when I was like, I need to know more. So he realized that when you get testicular cancer, it actually increases a lot of the factors that improve your chances of procreating again. Okay. So like tumor, it increases your testosterone. There's a lot of like benefits to having this so that you can procreate again. So his mind, he lost his child. So his body and his mind were just trying to support this loss by saying, hey, let's make another. And
Mhm.
that's when I was like, what? How is
Mhm.
this even? I just need to know more. It actually in that moment it brought me back to Bruce Lipton's Biology of Belief book that I had
Mhm.
read before that, which made me be like, German New Medicine is described pretty well in that book, but just not in those terms. Okay. And so what Dr. Hammer ended up going on to do was map out conflicts and how they connect to all parts of the brain, right? So there's about four different parts of the brain that he looks at and how they connect to the different, and we don't have time to go as deep as I wanted with this, but he basically just mapped everything. Symptoms, so not diagnoses, symptoms, to different, parts of the brain to different organs.
Mhm.
And it to date is still ahead of its time.
Mhm.
People are he so just so everybody understands, he was laughed out of the medical community. Like he just completely like, nope, like not even yeah. People were definitely not ready for that in the 70s and 80s, okay? And I mean, me and Jake, we've discussed this as well. People aren't really ready for it now either. Like,
Right.
Jake isn't necessarily supporting people with this currently because it's a lot for people to wrap their head around
Mhm.
because it is so deep down the rabbit hole when they're like, well, maybe I should just eat better. Maybe I should just stop eating gluten, kind of like the beginning of my story, right? And it's only touching a piece of the puzzle, folks. It's only touching a piece. Like
Right.
there's some stuff in there that's keeping you in either you're in a hanging conflict. So you're just in conflict for so long that these symptoms are getting worse or whatever it is, or you're getting stuck in a hanging healing. So let me explain what I mean by both of those. So um, when you have an acute response to something, okay, when you have something happen, a trauma, or in German medicine's case, a conflict, your subconscious mind takes a snapshot, okay? So everything you're seeing, tasting, smelling, hearing, the time of day, the time of year, all of that is taken into account and it snapshots it. And then it's like, oh, if this happens again, you go back into this healing phase, right? Like you go back into it, like recreates the trauma. So if you don't unlock that loop, you're going to keep recreating it, is really what it comes down to. So I thought it would be beneficial for me to kind of like um, give you an idea of some of the questions I asked to help people work through this from a German New Medicine standpoint. And I'm just going to use one that's like very broad. So like this is for weight. If you have weight gain and you want to lose weight and you're thinking about understanding this from a psyche, brain, and organ standpoint, I'm going to
Mhm.
tell you the three conflicts that cause the kidney collecting tubules to store water and basically have this weight gain issue. And this is, of course, outside of um, eating and exercise and sleep and all that stuff. This is just like the deeper layer. Do you think that would be beneficial just for me to help people understand the three main conflicts that cause this
I
Because
think so. Yeah. Run down an example, Matt. And maybe just to interject here real quick before you do that so people fully understand. So when you're in the phase of having symptoms, that's the healing phase, correct?
it depends. So yes and no. So this is the thing. So basically, you have a conflict, and um, it would be so good. So is this a video podcast or is
It
this
is a
just?
video podcast. Yeah, you can do some
Uh,
demos or share an image if you
okay. Yeah.
yeah.
So that's the whole thing, and I told you the story, psyche-brain-organ, all that stuff. So.
Yeah.
Um, So just coming further down, as you can see, he mapped out all the brain, where the different rings are, and where they where the issues come from.
Hmm.
And so yeah, so these will help a lot. So the normal before you have like a conflict happen, you're in sympathetic and parasympathetic yin and yang. So you're going back and forth between those, between waking and sleeping, right?
Yeah.
During waking time, you're in more of like you know, a natural stress state where you're just actively being a part of human life, and the ups and downs of getting kids dressed for the morning to get them off to the bus, like like
Hmm.
like
Yeah.
normal wild stressors that just cause this like normalness. Okay. However, when we have this, he calls it the Dirkhammer syndrome, DHS, but it's really like this unexpected emotional distressing shock, and it's detected by the psyche and it impacts the brain and the organs, starts this like smart adaptation process.
Mhm.
Okay. And this is the conflict active phase. Okay. So it's basically you're in conflict activity all of the time, right? And this is they call it the stress phase or the cold phase. So during this time frame, signs of conflict active phase are like cold hands and cold feet, sleep disturbances, obsessing about the event, lack of appetite, nervous restlessness, frequent urination, sweaty. Like a lot of times people will have like, uh, you know, like night sweats and things like that.
Mhm.
Just all that type of stuff. But this is examples of this. Okay. And then when you go into the healing phase, it can be kind of as crappy, to be honest with you. So that's what confuses people. And I'll explain it in a moment, how I was able to like pull these two apart. So the healing phase is relief at the level of the psyche. So we solve it at the level of the psyche, and then the brain and the organs kind of follow suit. Fever, warm hands and feet, fatigued, increased sleep during the day. So it was interesting because that one really like resonated with me, because a lot of times when people would do rapid transformation therapy, we'd resolve issues at the level of the psyche, and then they would just be tired. Some of them would like sleep for a day, like because we just resolved something that had maybe been going on for them for decades, right? So, like your symptoms, and actually, before I continue to share this, like if you think about your current symptoms that you're dealing with, there was a time at which you didn't have these symptoms in your
Mhm.
life. There was a time, unless you were born with them, there was a time in which you weren't, allergic to dairy, as an example. Like there was a time at which that wasn't an issue. So, when did that become a problem? We need to go that far back to understand where it started. Where was the initial DHS? Where's the
Uh-huh.
initial conflict that happened? Because it gets so muddied because people will have uh, similar conflicts, and it will just create more and more and more and more. And so they go into they have these repeated conflict active phases. And actually, I can kind of show you what that looks like. So hanging conflict looks like this, right? But what
Mhm.
also happens is, so it never resolves. So it's like prolonged conflict activity. A perfect example of this is like if you get in a fight with someone and you just never forgive them and you hold on to that shit for the rest of your life. You're just like, I
Yeah.
hate them and blah, blah, blah. Like you're stuck in it. So
Yeah.
like forgiveness can allow you to heal. So like like the saying, it's like you're drinking poison hoping someone else will die.
Yeah.
Like that's the conflict active phase is a great way to describe it. I've never described it that way, but it actually makes sense when I'm saying it now. And then the healing phases So the moment the conflict has been resolved at the level of psyche, the changes are at the organ are no longer required, right? So this is where tumor growth will be broken down and cell loss will be restored. But it doesn't mean it's all sunshine and roses. A lot of times it's headaches, migraines, bloating, all of this stuff, right? Like diarrhea, you name it. Like it's basically going through this whole phase. And there's a good, so that's the hanging healing part. But there's a good way to think about this. Let me go back up here.
And the
Um,
hanging healing mat, is that where then there's still unresolved similar conflicts to that original conflict that are coming in and perpetuating the healing symptoms? Is that right?
so the healing phase cannot be fully completed due to encountering regular conflict tracks and triggers. So
Yeah.
you know how I said earlier where I was like, your your subconscious takes a snapshot of that. So if any of those tracks or triggers pops up, a smell, a taste, a song, right? Let's say the song was your, I'm just going to use this example. Let's say your ex-husband or ex-wife and you hear your wedding song on the radio, you could go back into symptoms at that
I
point.
gotcha.
That's how crazy this is. Like that's why people are like, I have no clue what's wrong with me, and I don't know why this is happening. Right? I thought I had this under control, even with all the eating, the exercise, and all that stuff. Like it's because your mind is pulling that back up. It's
And it's
like, hey,
because, is it because the original trigger still hasn't been completely resolved? Is that why? Yeah.
bingo.
Yeah.
So that's really what it is. So the unconscious mind takes a snapshot, place, person, and thing. Chronic and reoccurring conditions are an example of this. So GMM gives a whole new perspective on allergies, why some allergies cause a running nose or digestion, for example, right? So like
Yeah.
that's kind of what happens. So it's like you start to heal, then you're triggered again. Then you're in conflict active. Then you go into the healing phase. So you can never go into the full like two healing phases in the epiloid crisis. Um, but even during these, like uh, during the healing phases, there is deep moments of sympathetic activity to push remaining fluid off the brain to finish healing. So often occurs in parasympathetic state. It mimics being conflict active again. So restlessness, nausea, elevated blood pressure, rapid pulse, all those things. Um, so it was interesting to me because when I started having my gut health issues, I approached it like Americans approach all of this stuff, where you're like, oh, I just want to drop a bomb in my gut and like make it all go away type of thing, which is
Yeah.
not appropriate. And it leads to massive like hair X reactions and things like that. So like when you have candida, I thought candida and H. pylori were the problem. They were
Yeah.
actually trying to help the healing. Let me
Yeah.
explain. This is what changed everything
Blows
for
your
me.
mind. Yep.
So my mentor Jake said it like this. He was like, "Imagine you're an alien and you're in a spaceship and you're flying up above the planet and you're right about ready to leave like, the atmosphere. And you look down on the planet and you see whenever you see a fire on the planet, you also see these trucks, these red trucks that are at these fires. And you're like, as an alien, you're like, ah, these red trucks must be causing the fire.
Hmm.
They must be causing these fires. So we got to attack these red trucks so they don't hurt, they stop causing these fires. That's the best way to think of candida, right? Candida is like, it's basically just trying to help you heal, is what it
They're
is.
like buffer organisms. I explain this all the time in my mentoring sessions with other practitioners. Like even just physiologically, like heavy metals can live in them, right? Like parasites can live in them, and so
Exactly.
they're protecting the body from those more toxic elements, even though in and of themselves they're not great, right? But there's a protective role there.
Exactly. And depending on the part of your brain, so if it was the cerebral cortex or the cerebral medulla, if that's where the conflict active phase happened,
Yeah.
during the conflict active part of it, there's cell loss. And then during the healing phase, there's tissue restoration with bacteria.
Mm.
But if it's in the cerebellum or the brainstem, during conflict active phase, you're going to have cell proliferation.
Mm.
And then when you're healing, you're going to have cell removal, fungal or bacteria growth, overgrowth, right?
Yeah.
So like think yeast infection. You're like, why the hell did that happen, right? You're actually healing. And what does everybody do when that happens? Oh, let's take some antibiotics. Like it's
Right.
just wild, right? So you're
Right.
actually stopping the healing from happening because you don't realize you're healing. This is where it gets really tricky. And, once again, take this for what you want, folks.
Hmm.
And it's changed my life forever.
Oh,
I have not taken an antibiotic personally since 2014.
yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think kind of what you're getting at too, Matt, and this is just so key, is that in my world, for example, I use a functional stool test. I like to use the GI map, and it's a great test, but I will tell you,
Perfect.
if I'm working with a person and I've run that test two, three times and we're not seeing microbial eradication after we've run a protocol, this is where we need to go next. Like the
Totally.
answer is not to keep banging that same pathogen over and over and over again. And I think this is where you can use all the tools, but you have to have wisdom in the process and really take into account like maybe the physical body isn't ready to get rid of these bugs because there's a role they're playing right now. And going up to the
Yep.
level of the psyche is where we have to go next, right?
Totally. And this is another part of it that everybody needs to hear. So in my study of this, I learned if for some issues, if you resolve the conflict too quickly, it can
Yeah.
actually be extremely detrimental. So for example, like
Oh,
anytime I work with a client, I ask them, do you have heart issues? Because if you have a heart issue and you resolve a conflict too quickly, it can actually cause an attack.
oh
So
wow.
that's how wild this gets. Okay. I also, and this was before I understood German New Medicine and before I understood all of this stuff,
Yeah.
I had a client, and we did rapid transformation therapy. We resolved a very big conflict, and within 3 months, she had such gallbladder issues. She ended up having it removed. Um, and I really feel like there's a chance that those were connected. Like because it's like when you resolve this stuff, I now know how to do it in a very different way, like now knowing what I know. But it's like
Yeah.
you do need to be understanding of this. And then there's the other side of this where I could literally, like, I'll share some of these questions with your listeners right now, where they could hear some of these questions and it could resolve some of this and they could lose weight today. So like
Yeah.
that's how wild this gets because uh knowing, like truly knowing and accepting this at a subconscious level can just start the process of healing. It's like
Yeah.
wild. Just listening to this podcast, just hearing this stuff. Like, and I guess that's all I really love. And I'm so excited to come on today because I was like, Courtney and I could transform one person's life today that just like listens to
Exactly.
this and like they're just like, oh my God, this is what I've been looking for. Like that's what this is all about. And they never even have to work with this, but they just hear this and like it just resolves it. How cool is that? Like
That's so
that's the
cool.
power here, folks. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
And
yeah,
we're,
like
we're and we're gonna have to do a part two, Matt, because I know we're kind of running up on time,
totally.
but I do want you to like share your information for sure before we close out. But I just want to ask you one question real quick, just because it's top of mind, and I think other
Yeah.
people might be thinking this too, is when you do hypnosis, do you find that certain people can't remember these original triggers, or do you feel like with enough openness and guidance from you, most people can get there and kind of connect those dots?
Oh, are you saying like most people after or during the session, some of them
During
can't
the
get to the,
session.
oh, we're talking
During
about
the session.
regression. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I have worked, like I said, I've done over 500 sessions. There's only been two people ever in all of those sessions um, that were interesting. So let me explain. The two people, one of them after the, like mid session, I realized, or even after it, she had explained to me she had a brain injury, and I didn't know that. So she had
Okay.
brain damage, and
Okay.
therefore, I mean, nothing we did worked. So I just gave her money back, and she went on her way, right?
Oh, geez.
So
Oh,
so
gosh.
there's that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Then the other woman, she had a fear of closing her eyes, so that was an
Oh,
interesting one.
gotcha.
However, even with that one, it wasn't in like an all for loss situation. We were able to do a lot of, so I've also trained in conversational hypnosis and stuff like that and neuro-linguistic programming. So we were able to do a bunch without it to
Okay.
get to the deeper layers. But most people, and I mean, I'm talking like 95% of the people that I've worked with, or more, we always get to places and they're like, I never, ever, I didn't, they either say, I forgot about that, I didn't know that that happened, or they're like, I didn't link that with that. So
That's
part of my,
amazing.
yeah, part of my
Yeah.
job is to take these 3 to 4 scenes that come up, and you're not reliving these scenes. Very important. I'm going to say it 3 times. You're not reliving this. You're not reliving this. You're not reliving this. It's like you and I go to the movie theater together, and we're watching the previews, and I'm like, oh, I gotta go to the snack shack and just like tell me what, like we'll talk via walkie talkies. You tell me what you're seeing on the screen, and I'll ask you questions about it. That's kind of what regression is like. It's like you're just telling me what's going on, and I'm asking you questions about what's going on and how you feel about it, because it's not so much what happened, it's like your perception of what happened, your
Yeah.
feelings and your emotions. Feeling is the language of the subconscious. So it's everything. And so if you have a feeling, your feelings are creating your thoughts are creating your feelings, and your feelings are creating your thoughts. And it's just this whole
There's a
jumble
cycle.
yeah, it's a cycle, right? And so
Yeah.
that's why, when people are trying to have these types of transformations, like they just don't know any of this stuff. And so I hope, if nothing else, I hope you all, this gave you a perception shift even here and now, that there's hope, folks. That's the biggest thing. Like there's always, always, always something you can do. Always. There's always another layer. I've been doing this for 2 decades, and I find a new layer every day and a different way to help people understand it. So that's the
Yeah.
deal.
Awesome, Matt. We're definitely going to have to do a part two because I feel like there's probably so much more you could say on the new medicine. But
Yeah,
I know in the interest of time, that was great answering my question. So thank you. Appreciate that because I'm sure some
absolutely.
people were thinking like, gosh, could this work for me? Right. So
Yeah.
just before we close, or can we close out with you sharing how people can get a hold of you? Because I'm sure some people are super interested now in reaching out to you.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would always say, number one, connect with Courtney first. Okay, like if you're, I'm very adamant about this because it does go to, it's the yin and the yang. Like with what you do and but it's like a conjunction thing, right?
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
could I could help you solve this thing at a deeper layer, but you're
Right.
still living in a third dimension world here on
World.
Earth, and
Right.
like you do need the
Nutrition.
all of the other pieces of the puzzle, right?
Yep.
This will just support what you currently do. And with
Yeah.
that being said, so connect with Courtney. She can, of course, connect you with me. But if you want to, connect with me personally, my company's called The Potential You, the potential dash the letter U. I help people in 3 main areas: mind, body, and business. So I work with a lot of entrepreneurs and help them go to the deeper levels. So I have found that the subconscious helps on so many levels, not just health, but it's all interconnected. So at the potential you on Instagram, on YouTube. You can connect with Matt. You just send me a message on Facebook, Matt Travis. It's the one that looks like me. And then LinkedIn as well, Coach Matt Travis. So there is a lot of Matt Travises. That's why I said the one that looks like me. You'd be surprised. There's like literally, I'm part of a group, Matt Travises of the World Unite, and there's like 50 of us in there. It's nuts.
Oh, that's too funny. But yeah, and I'll get the links and put them in the show notes so people can click on them. Well, this has been
Perfect.
such an awesome conversation, and definitely we're going to have to do a part two because I think it's just such a big
Yeah.
topic to try to unpack in
It
one
is. It is.
episode.
I tried, but it's such a mammoth. But both of them, like hypnotherapy mixed with it together, it's just a lot.
It's a
Um,
lot.
but
It's a
I hope
lot.
to help people, give people a starting point today.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Did you find this episode informative and helpful? I'd love to have you leave me a 5-star rating. Do you have questions about holistic approaches to optimizing gut health that you'd like to ask? Please leave your question or comment below, and I will be sure to address it personally or cover it in a future episode. Be sure to check the show notes for any resources mentioned in today's episode. See you next time.